So compared to other federations where you're just getting a bikini made and it's all uniform, there's no differences, the price gets up there. And I'm going to be really honest with you about my last two shows because I did a tracking of expenses. Now, this also includes paying for photo shoots, which are often like $1,500, per photographer. And then you've got your hotels and accommodation and things. But the last two shows that I have done cost $25,000 to $30,000.
Wow.
Is bodybuilding about selfies, steroids, magazines, and muscles? How do I become a successful pro bodybuilder or fitness competitor? Where do I even start if I'm new? And the biggest question of all, what are the judges looking for anyway? Even today with the internet, many people first discover bodybuilding by word of mouth. The lack of regulation has caused a boom of unqualified coaches, scattered info, biased advice, dangerous protocols, and posing trends that are a hot mess. After 20 years in the business, I have seen it all. Week after week, I'm going to talk about taboo topics that get swept under the rug, provide you tips and strategies to gain a competitive edge and stand out on stage in any division or federation. I'm going to answer all the burning industry questions without the bias. I have competed across 6 federations, earned pro status in 3, and judged in 2. I've coached posing and choreography for men and women in all federations and divisions. I know just how much competing means to you. I'm your host, Michelle Welcome, and you are listening to the Everything Else in Bodybuilding podcast. Be sure to download your free guide, 5 Things Every Bodybuilder and Fitness Competitor Needs to Know Before Your Next Show at EENBB.com. That's www.EEINBB.com.
Welcome back to the Everything Else in Bodybuilding podcast. I am your host, Michelle Welcome, and this episode continues the podcast series I am doing called Meet the Federations. My goal is for you to learn firsthand all of the different options there are in the sport of bodybuilding by highlighting people in the different federations and having honest conversations about the federation they know best. Today, we are talking all about the WBFF Federation. My guest today, Holly Baxter, has claimed 2 world championship level wins as a natural fitness competitor. She has been competing with the WBFF as a professional diva fitness model and achieved runner-up in the Pro World Championships. In addition to talking about all what makes the WBFF different from all other federations, Holly is also a registered dietitian and the co-founder and director of a number of health and fitness related businesses. I expect there to be some golden fitness nuggets, Holly, dropped today during the show. So first, let me introduce Holly Baxter to the show. Holly, please take a moment and share a little bit more about your background, your story, about how you got into bodybuilding, and share why did you choose to compete in the WBFF Federation?
Yeah. Oh, wow. There's so many nuggets in there. Okay. So let's go back. We've got to go back to be able to go forwards, right? Sometimes you have to do that. So I guess the reason that I got into bodybuilding and physique competitions is not the normal route. I don't believe so, at least. So I had a lot of experience as a kid in sports. I did track athletics. I was a basketballer. I achieved very high level of, track athleticism as a kid. So I competed at the Youth Olympics when I was pretty young. And I think by the time you get to the point where you are making some decisions about your career, I had to decide whether, are you going to pursue sport or are you going to pursue, an education? And because I grew up in Australia, the opportunities for females in, any kind of sport really, unless you were considering maybe like NBA level basketball, there weren't really very many. And I guess there was a little bit of pressure, I think, from my parents to take the academic route. No one had ever really gone to college in my family. And I guess I still felt like I made a good decision, and that's what I did. So I got out of my, hometown environment as quickly as I could. I think I had quite a troublesome, youth, and we'll get into that in today's episode. Maybe we won't, but it was really important for me to kind of break away from that kind of environment. So I went and did an undergraduate in food science and nutrition, and then I did my master's in dietetics. So it wasn't until maybe like 2 or 3 years into, I guess, my career where I'd already had an established clinical practice. So I was already like treating patients, still doing a little bit of exercise on the side. It was just, I did that for my general health and to maintain my body composition. So I primarily did cardio. So back then I was dating a guy at the time, and we decided to, move locations, build a bigger gym. And I was doing all high intensity, like fitness programs. So I was doing boot camps, probably 4 or 5 times a week, like personally. I would go to do the gym and do resistance training, like maybe once or twice. So that wasn't the priority back then. And I loved running. So I would do like 5Ks, 10Ks. I know as part of our company or a group at the time, we would go and do like Tough Mudder. We would do the Winter Warrior challenges. So I was very diverse, I think, in my fitness. But I also was really unhappy with my physique, considering how many hours that I was putting in. And also, like, I'm a dietitian. Like, what's going on? Like, I feel like I should have all the answers to my problems. And it was I felt really ashamed, honestly. Like, now, I wasn't overweight. I was like a normal body. In fact, I was probably in the top, 10% of, normal like physiques for females, I guess, at that point. But for the amount of work that I invested in, it just didn't feel very satisfying. So a client of mine actually one day, whom I was coaching for the INBA, which is an Australian, I guess, well, it's worldwide, but they're a natural fitness federation. Their world championships were coming up in, I guess, the middle of the year. It was January at the time. And she'd said to me, well, you know what? I don't know whether I'm ready to do this. Like, I admire your physique. Like, have you ever thought about doing these competitions yourself? And I was like, no way. So, 10 years later, I think I've done like 45 competitions. But yeah, I was like, you know what? Why not? I'll give it a go. And I love to travel. So the idea of being able to go to Dubai and compete, it's something that I kind of liked doing. It meant that I still got to train. It was a business tax write-off back then. So I had to first win a state show and then a national show, which I somehow pulled that out of my butt in like 12 weeks. And then went over to Dubai to compete for Australia. And that was where I won my first world title. So that was back in 2015, I believe. And from there, I kind of stayed another 1 year, I think, with that federation, but kind of felt like I outgrew it a little bit. Like, I was always thinking like bigger, like, okay, where can I be against the best people, and who's got where's the best competition? Like, I'm so competitive. So I landed myself in the IFBB. And I was competing as a figure by this point. So significantly more muscle mass than I have now. And a lot more heavier training, a lot more time in the gym. And I kind of got to the point where, it was taking up so much of my time to kind of get to the level of muscularity that was going to be necessary for a winning physique in at least figure. I was like, you know what? I'm starting to, number one, not like my physique. I think I'm getting too muscular. I can't fit in like cute little clothes anymore. I wanted to be able to wear the little bomber jackets or like something fitted. And it was just really hard to find clothes, to be honest, because I was just so broad, but then tiny, tiny waist, and like same for my jeans. So I actually decided to scale it back a little bit. And then if I stayed in that federation, I guess you had bikini and then you have figure, and my physique kind of landed me right in the middle. I was too muscular for bikini and not muscular enough to be the best in figure. And most of those girls, because it's an untested federation, I had to make a choice. I'm like, well, I don't want to look like that, and I also don't want to put my body through that. I'm still to this day like a lifetime natural athlete. So yeah, I downsized, and that was when I found my love for WBFF because they offered a federation that was kind of in the middle of those two, which was fitness. So different to fitness in IFBB. Anyone's listening, they probably know the differences. But for anyone that doesn't, I guess fitness in the IFBB world, there's a whole routine. You get to kind of be extremely jacked and do cartwheels and one hand push-ups. Like, they're insane, but that's not what it is in this federation. So it's really just an intermediate level of muscularity. You're not quite as small as a bikini competitor, but you're not, in this place where you're really, really muscular. So that's kind of where I've stayed. I have now been with the WBFF since 2018, and I have, I guess, placed anywhere from ninth and then all the way through to second. And it's kind of bounced and ping-ponged around in between that, top 3, top 5 for the last couple of years. So this year.
And we're going to get into the specifics a little bit more about the WBFF Federation, but I do want to just touch on real quick, because I think it was interesting, your journey specifically being a dietitian. Here you are training people before you've even competed. You go through all this schooling, and here you are a dietitian, and you're doing all these boot camp classes. So it seemed like to me there was a disconnect between training and nutrition, and a disconnect between training and nutrition, and then this thing called bodybuilding. So is it my understanding that when you're going to school to be a dietitian, that is there any education on how to combine nutrition with exercise?
There absolutely is. And I mean, you can take extra elective as well if that's where you want to specialize. But I think the one thing that a lot of people don't know about dietitians is that we aren't actually just training people or coaching, counseling, whatever you want to call it, with people that are looking to change their body composition. In fact, dietetics was like, I don't think I even really had an appreciation for what it was until I was in the thick of it. Like, there are specialized dietitians that work with perineal nutrition, gastroenterology, cardiothoracic, infectious disease, diabetes, renal, hepatic. There's so many different specialized positions that dietitians can nutritionally manage. Even something as extreme as like a nasogastric type feeding protocol, JEG feeds, which are, in a case where maybe you've got a cancer patient that they've had cancer of the esophagus and they've had part of their esophagus removed.
So where does bodybuilding fit into all of that?
Isn't that crazy, right? So bodybuilding, honestly, the most common, the common denominator really is it fits in with where you would work with weight loss patients. And the reality is you don't treat those two people the same. So I think that's why fundamentally I have gained the most amount of knowledge for me personally post my education. So I was at school for 6 years. And afterwards, where I've, tried to be more specialized in my skill set, where I'm reading scientific papers, I'm looking up, overfeeding studies, I'm looking at, specific, subjects that are trying to maximize the retention of their muscle mass and maximize the amount of fat loss. There are specific studies, and there are people that are doing their PhDs specifically on like bodybuilders and or physique athletes. So, it's the ongoing professional development afterwards, which requires a lot of discipline and a lot of, added focus, where I've learned more about this sport than I have when I was at school, because you have to be generalized when you're going to school.
Yeah, and then your evolution from the INBA, is that the INBA PNBA?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay,
yep.
With the Natural Olympia. So anybody out there that's trying to keep all these federations and the acronyms straight. So there's the Natural Olympia, which is the INBA PNBA. You talked about the IFBB. Are you talking about the IFBB Elite? Or are you talking about the NPC/IFBB?
So NCEP/IFBB. So I started out as, I didn't have my pro card, and then I got my pro card, and then because I hadn't maintained it and I didn't compete anymore, I will have lost my pro card. So I guess the Australian IFBB and NPC do it a little bit differently. So we kind of use the word IFBB interchangeably because that's where the big shows are, and you go and compete at those shows as an amateur.
Right. And then you went and competed in places like Dubai. I have to ask, was it okay? Is there a lot of female competitors in Dubai? I only ask because isn't there like limitations on what you can wear in public. Is that the case? I've never been to Dubai. It's always fascinated me, but I'm kind of questioning about if I was walking out, like you look at your crop top, how adorable you look. If you walked out in a crop top, would you get in trouble?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Would you really?
what? A lot has changed. So I was in Dubai the first time when it was the first year that as a country, like the United Arab Emirates were allowing the sport to take place in their country. So like this was a movement. It was, the first time we had, the sheiks there were the governors, like it was a big deal. So it wasn't a massive show, I think, just because it was the first time. There were not really a whole lot of locals competing at that point. There were some, but, a lot of the competitors were coming from, other countries. So it was a unique experience the first time that I went there. We definitely made sure that we were covered up and we went out in public, going to the malls. Like we wanted to go and see the Dubai malls and, see the Al Arab and the Burj Khalifa. Like, oh my God, these places are amazing. Like the infrastructure and the man-made islands. Like if anyone hasn't been to Dubai, please put it on your bucket list because it was exactly what it was chalked up to be like when I looked at it online. So a really cool experience. But we had to be very conservative, like going from your hotel pool. If you're walking through a lobby, they weren't okay with you just kind of keeping your flip-flops on and your bikini and a throw. Like you had to put your clothes back on. Like I remember my friend and I, we got told off. They were like, oh, ma'am, you need to go back and put your clothes on. I'm like, okay. Because you're not used to doing that in Australia at least. And in most American hotels, you want to walk to your hotel room in your bathers and your towel, like you probably do it. So second
they
time.
allowed a show.
They did.
Actual show, but did they limit what you could wear?
No,
did you have to wear
not.
extra clothes?
No, absolutely not. But then that was in a private event. So in the venue, they had a big auditorium. You could wear, you wore your beautiful. I love my first bikini. It was amazing. So, but outside you had to, put your track pants back on. I remember it was like going and sitting in a sauna. It was so hot. It was like 60 degrees Celsius or something crazy like that, which is probably equivalent to 145 degrees Fahrenheit. It was like you got off the plane and you're just like, whoo.
Really? Wow, but that's crazy.
It's changed quite a bit. I think I was there last year speaking at one of their, I guess, big health and fitness expos. And it was significantly more flexible. I think they've kind of adopted more of the westernized culture. People are walking around in the shorts and t-shirts. There's a lot more Westerners and expats there as well. So I think there are certain communities where, it's probably not as appropriate. But I mean, some of the women and the ladies that train, they're still, Muslim. They still are head to toe. They're covered up in their outfits, but that's how they train. So the sport is being encouraged, but it's probably more prominent amongst males.
Sure. And then you talked about the experience in Dubai, but you talked about your experience in the INBA, PNBA, IFBB. So you migrated over to the WBFF and loved it. What would you say would be the biggest difference in the experience from the show as an athlete? What would you say is the biggest difference between the WBFF and your previous experiences in the other federations?
I love the WBFF. I think that, over the years, and again, this is probably as my personality has transformed or transcended. It's like I used to have this very, tough exterior. And I think I was raised like that. It was, nothing is too hard. You're extremely disciplined. Like you just have this, go hard, go home mentality. So when I first started, there were certain elements of the show preparation, there were certain elements of the show day that kind of just felt rough around the edges, whereas nowadays I've really tried to embrace my femininity. And particularly if I reflect back on being a figure athlete, that did not get to express my femininity, or certainly I didn't feel like it at all, because there was like a high level of muscularity. The posing was extremely masculine. You're kind of doing your front poses, which are in some ways similar to the males.
Look at those lats, girl.
I thought we'd try to shrink them down. I haven't trained my back for a while, but the
we're so opposite. I'm like rowing my lats and shoulders. I'm excited for some muscle. Yeah.
Look, I would say I'm the oddball. Most people that I work with are trying to build. I've kind of done the full circle. I'm like, I've been there, done that. I have a different life now. But the WBFF, it just feels a lot more feminine. And to be honest, the only way that I can describe it as an Australian, not growing up in the pageant world, is that it's like a bodybuilding pageant. So, the World Championships is the only event that I do personally now, but I still coach girls for all of the shows. But, the World Championships, you've probably been there, right? You have your first day of registration. There's a media day. Then there's a kind of a day in between where you're doing all of your photo shoots. Then there's the red carpet event, and you just get to be a girl. Like, you're wearing a ball gown at all of these events, and you get to wear whatever you want. And for my category, the fitness category, the divas get to wear not only a bikini for one of the rounds, but the whole experience for the second round is a theme. So, I have done all kinds of crazy, fun theme wear over the years. Like, I used to love Japanese anime when I was a kid. So I went as Sailor Moon one year, and then I've been as a warrior princess. And last year, I don't know what I was, but, you just get to have fun with it. And it feels so girly. And I think that has enabled me to kind of, I still have such an appreciation and passion for the discipline of, and the process where you can apply yourself and you can make change. But then there's also the other part of me that always felt like it was missing in these other organizations, which was I still feel kind of manly. Like there's no, you get 10 seconds on stage and that was it. Whereas this federation, it feels there's a lot more community. It feels a lot more feminine. And I think, they're embracing the role of the world of social media. They've got a magazine that they have for the girls. There's a lot more just general connection, I think. So that's one. I
think that's very important to notate what you talked about. So specifically leading up to the show is very distinct difference with the WBFF. So it's not just, okay, we're going to register, we're going to show up in our pajamas, and we're going to walk up to the table and we're going to get with our first coat of tan, pale white face, maybe just a little spray coat in the bottom, definite pajama action, walk up to the table, get my number, scoot on through, go lay down, put my feet up. So that's definitely not the experience that you're going to get with the WBFF. So Holly, what happens when you show up to the competitor meeting with the WBFF?
Oh my God, it's a hoot. First off, I've always had at least one or two wines because it's the evening time usually. So in fact, most of the girls we've been somewhere and had dinner, and we're rocking our most amazing, ball gowns. There's photographers there. You're doing social media. You're all glammed up, like you're connecting with women that you've never met before. And then they have a great big old, welcome to the athletes meeting. And that meeting is not sitting in your pajamas. You're sitting there with your crowns. There's awards that are given out to different categories. Some of the people that are like most influential and supportive to the industry or to the federation. There's teams and team awards, coach of the year awards. And then of course, Alison and Paul get up and they're the owners of the federation. They'll do some kind of, a big speech, and it's really just to kind of make you feel special. And then also remind you that this is a competition and let's get after it. Let's be gracious in the way that we handle ourselves, and but it's also a competition, so let's go.
So is that the case? So I know the World Championships, that's like the Super Bowl for the WBFF, kind of like the Olympias for the IFBB. Yeah. So this lead up to the show day is really quite extensive. Now, what about like the regional shows? Is there still this type of setup before those shows as well? Are you still showing up looking homeless, or are you expected to show up looking ready to, take a photo?
You are not showing up looking up homeless anywhere with anything to do with the WBFF. I think if Alison or Paul, I'm even nervous, if I'm staying in the same hotel room as they are for that regional show. I'm like, I hope they don't see me if I'm like sneaking down to get a workout in or something, because there's the expectation that you are there representing that federation, you're playing that part, and they have standards. So the registration still at these regional meets, you still come in a gown. And that was the memo that I missed the first time I ever did a show. I got there. Thankfully, I had a beautiful dress, but it was one that I just had, I think I was in Thailand and had a nice dress made because I saw something on a movie. So, it was unique and custom, but it was not covered in glitter and beads and diamantes. So, I think from there, after 2019, I changed my tune. I definitely made the effort to dress up and do what the federation does best. And it is like glamour, it's fashion, it's fitness, it's beauty.
And they've really carved themselves as that in the industry. When I started with it, I actually competed with WBFF around 2011, 12, 13, those years. And that's when the clear shoes were you could still wear clear shoes in the figure division. The athlete meeting, you were expected to wear a dress, but it definitely wasn't a ball gown. And at the time, I believe bodybuilding was still a part of the acronym in the WBFF. And they changed at some point bodybuilding to the world beauty. Like they really moved away from being considered bodybuilding wheelhouse for federation options and really migrated towards that whole beauty fashion show, runway, Victoria's Secret meets runway meets fashion meets, I don't know, glam, right? So that change is something that has really evolved over the years. And your experience now is wherever you go, you're expected to have some sort of representation of the federation. Do they give the guidelines out to you guys, or is it just whisper?
Yeah, no, they do give you guidelines. I don't think that they're as clear as what they are when you get there and you see. Nowhere does it say you need to spend $1,000 on a dress with glitter. But when you see the other people, it's like, I think you're encouraged and inspired to do that too. So I think the girls have probably, participated and enabled the growth of this beauty and this glam. But it's fun because where else? I mean, at our age, I'm 33. Where do I get to dress up? Maybe aside from New Year's Eve in a ball gown and, truly embrace that. So it's just not something that you kind of do every day. But I guess the federation has come a long way. And I think that there's still an element, obviously, of bodybuilding, that there's a lot less emphasis on that, I think, especially for the bikini girls. But at the same time, your presentation, is a big part of the judging criteria, and your body is part of that judging criteria. So that's why we still have different, divisions. There's your bikini fitness, there's still figure, and those girls are extremely muscular. So there's definitely still a focus on the physique. So to me, it still feels like I get to train and do the same thing. It's just that I've had to prepare mentally for those weeks as an introvert, believe it or not. I'm the extroverted introvert, I guess. It's such a lot for me, having to be that social and be on. It can be challenging. So if that's not you, maybe the other federations are better because you can kind of enjoy the process of building and muscle and being in the gym and pushing yourself to your limits. But then you get to retreat into your hotel bedroom and just hang out and not have to talk to anybody. So look, I guess it depends on your personality type, but I really love it. I don't know that I consider going back to bikini because it's a bigger federation. And again, my reasons for competing are business and for sending a message. And when I do that, I had to think, which is the best business decision for me? Should I work with WBFF, which kind of fulfills a little bit of my preferences for being feminine and the glitz and the glam, but it doesn't have the same, robustness because it hasn't been around for as long as the IFBB or the NPC. So
2007, I think, is when they started, right?
Yes.
WBFF started 2007. Yeah.
So it was in the late, before we got to 2010. Yes. So I wasn't around then, but I know it was definitely the latter part of the 2000s.
Well, let's talk about those different divisions. So let's go through for the audience the different divisions for the women and the different options for the men. So might as well start, because you mentioned Diva Fitness, you mentioned Bikini, and for people that are listening, they may not even know what are the options for the WBFF and the women. So let's start there. So Bikini, you have, go ahead.
Yeah, so Bikini is, I guess, your least muscular of the categories. So you still get to, obviously, there's still an element of exercise that goes into this. And over the years, I think what the Federation has defined a bikini competitor has changed quite substantially. If we go back just 5 years, I mean, like Lauren Simpson, my girl from Australia, she was up there. Rachel Simpson. My goodness, I'm thinking about my musicians. Rachel, what's her name? Oh my God, Dillon, yes. Yep. Rachel Dillon, they're very different physiques, but 2 years in a row, their body composition was extremely different. So the bikini girls are, in my eyes, they're the ones that I look at and go, oh my God, you're just so beautiful. They remind me like they've just been plucked off the beach or the runway. They're like naturally beautiful. Not that there aren't naturally beautiful women in the other categories, but to me, they're more feminine. So they've got more curves. They don't need to be as muscular. These girls were like made for runway. They're just girly girls. So I kind of don't fit in that category, even if I didn't want to train anymore, because I grew up sporty and I'm a scientist. So it's just a weird combination. But so that's one of the categories. There's a transformation category as well. So they're really trying to incentivize people to, change their life. And so these are people that might have started out at, 250 pounds for a female, maybe more. And they've really had a radical change in their life. Maybe something crazy has happened. And, now they're in this position where they're going to take back their lives. And that is more the testament and the testimonial. Like they bring these people back out, they share their stories, they bring up their pictures from, before and after. And that's a really nice category. And they have that for men and women. We actually had somebody that used our books just last year who I had the pleasure of interviewing at the event, and his name was Michael. And just hearing those stories give me goosebumps. I get goosebumps just thinking about now. Like he had major health issues and then changed his life. So that's a cool category. They also have, the sports model category for men. I guess these guys get to come out in I'm going to call them budgie smugglers, because that's what they are. What do you guys call them? Speedos. We call them budgie smugglers.
Trunks.
The trunks, the swim trunks. Probably the more professional.
Not the board shorts, right? Nope. It's not board shorts. It's trunks.
No.
You're showing your legs.
Yeah, we got to see the whole package. The legs. I'm talking about the legs.
This is the men's model division. So we'll sidestep a little bit. So we've got the bikini division for women, which is the least amount of muscle. And then you've got the male model category, which is the least amount of muscle in the men's category, the transformation category, which is available for both the men and women. And then before we move on, so what are the requirements? So on stage, you've got, for the women, you've got a 2-piece round. You cannot be wearing clear heels.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different rules. And again, it changes depending on which category you're in. So for the bikini girls, there are 2 rounds. There's the bikini round, and then there is an evening gown round. So the girls come out with both of those over various time points over the show. They're judged on their overall stage presence. They are judged on their body composition for the bikini round, and then their total package. So the girls, there's less emphasis there on being muscular. So there are certain requirements about shoes. They do have, certain dressmakers, designers that they recommend that you use. You're not allowed to use, hair and makeup outside of the federation. So you book through the organization, unlike some of the other federations where, you can do your own makeup. You could create your own gowns. You could do them yourself. You could do your own spray tans. You could do your tanning at home in other federations. So with the WBFF, there is a requirement that you are using all of their services and their products. And then there's obviously incentivization to work with their designers as well. So that's the bikini division. You mentioned a couple of things about like the different shoes. You're correct in that. That is like a generic ruling. There are also, I guess, in the know bits of information if you're, friends with the Dillettes or you're more involved in the federation. You kind of know what they like, and this is a very subjective sport. So, or a competition, I should say. It's not necessarily a sport. So you kind of play to those things, and that's why it can be beneficial to work with coaches and people that are heavily involved in the federation, because you're going to get some of that inside information that other people that are brand new might not know about. So those things aren't necessarily stipulated, but I think we all have our personal preferences. So it can make it a little bit challenging, I think, if you want to go in and be your authentic self. You're risking potentially not appeasing what they like. Whereas the other federations, it's all uniform. There can be no differences. You're all wearing the same style of bikini or suit. You're wearing the same shoes. So it's a little bit more, clear cut. The other thing to consider with this federation, and this goes for all of the different divisions for females, is that there is no set posing routine. So unlike the bikini girls in the IFBB or NPC, there is a very specific way, a specific walk, typical posings, how you do it, whereas you get ultimate freedom in this federation. You can do whatever it is you want. Now, there are certain things that are frowned upon, and usually it's just anything that's overly provocative. I've seen people with their first time, they're not trying to be provocative, but they didn't realize that when they do their legs really wide apart and look back over their shoulder, it's just not a good look. So, there are certain things that are encouraged, and that's all described in, the guidelines for the competitions. So that's kind of the bikini. I guess moving into the fitness girls, which is what I do, like I mentioned before, we're a little bit different again. So we come out in our bikini round, and again, it's completely whatever it is you want to wear. And then there is the theme wear round. So you have ultimate freedom to choose whatever you like. And I guess the more creative and the more bombastic, what's the other word? Bombastic. Yeah, bombastic, the better. So the downsides of that are that it can be quite expensive. So compared to other federations where you're just getting a bikini made and it's all uniform, there's no differences, the price gets up there. And I'm going to be really honest with you about my last two shows because I did a tracking of expenses. Now, this also includes paying for photo shoots, which are often like $1,500, per photographer. And then you've got your hotels and accommodation and things. But the last two shows that I have done cost $25,000 to $30,000.
Wow.
All said and done.
And now I did see that you were very open about one of your roads to the World Championships, and you had mentioned that you spent like $6,000 on your theme wear alone, right? So that's only $6,000. Where did the rest go?
So let me just tell you. All right. So a pro again. Now I'm a pro. I've been doing this for a long time and I've been in the federation for a long time. So I'm probably one of the more excessive, but I know that there are girls that have spent twice as much money as that. But these are like, they're celebrities almost. So their income is substantially different to the average person. But for an entry-level bikini, this is for any of the categories, you're probably looking at about $800 just because they've got to have some glitter and glam. Now, if you're a sewer,
not too bad.
it's not too bad.
For entry level, I mean, if you were competing in other like
Amateur.
NPC or OCB or any other federations, that's pretty comparable. $800 is reasonable. You could probably get away with 400 to 500, 800. You'd have a little bit more stones, so that's not too bad. So that's the two piece. Okay.
Yeah, that's the two piece. And then if we stick with the bikini, I mean, for the pros, if you're really wanting to stand out and wow people, obviously you're paying a price for the materials and then also the level of experience of the designers. So my bikini recently, I believe, was about $1,200, I think, which I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was
For
simple,
couture,
but
for elaborate. That's not too bad. Okay.
uh-huh. It's the theme wear and then the gowns that get expensive. So keep in mind, I said for world championships, there are three big ball events, gala events. So we have the media day, which Alison will choose the theme a couple of weeks before. And then you have to wear a gown that matches that color scheme. So if it was like in 2021, it was, a night in Paris. So everybody was wearing black, with the gloves and the beautiful, headpieces and things. So, a gown like that can be very expensive. I think mine I borrowed mine off a friend, thankfully. But, in recent years, 2022, I think all of my gowns, the three different ones, which was media day, registration day, and then there was a red carpet, I believe I had. So those three gowns together cost about $6,000. Now, I could have probably gone to, some of the online shops like Shein or, I don't know, Opoly and looked up ball gowns because you can get some of those under, $100. But when you get to the pro level and you see what everybody else is doing, you can't really get away with that anymore because they're so custom, they're so extravagant. And that's kind of where, if I could choose to get away with a cheaper dress and it fit me well, awesome. But we're also dealing with more muscular women now that have different bodies to the average body that you'd buy those types of gowns from. So I've always had to have mine customized because I have lats and because I have big glutes and, things just don't fit the same way that they do, a less muscular physique. So the gowns were $7. Let's say the bikini was $1,500, and then my theme wear is where it gets really pricey. So an entry level theme wear for a novice competitor probably starts at about $1,500. And then my most expensive theme wear, I think, was about $5,000. But it had first off, that's me including like the packing, the shipping, getting it on the plane, paying for a little bit extra. Like I'm lumping this all into transporting this big thing. But it came to probably about $6,000. And I know girls that have spent up to 10 because they've got like trains that are from Gucci that are like, I don't know, a whole stage long. So
it's the theme wear really. And if you're new listening to this and never competed in the WBFF, wouldn't you think that you might be a little bit scared to hear these numbers? Like $30,000 for some people is like a year's salary. You know? So
I know.
Is there a way to do it on the budget, or do you think that you want that competitive edge? You really need to up your game and can't be showing up with the, Macy's dress off the rack.
Right. So I think that you can. I really do. I'm speaking as somebody that's, a professional that's been in it for a while. I do have a higher income, so it makes it easier for me to commit to these big glamorous things. But I also know that there are plenty of competitors that I have coached and that I have competed alongside with that they are either very, very, very good, like seamstresses, or they can sew well, or that's their job. So they've been able to create their own costumes and their own theme wear. Then, somebody that can help you out, that, can do these kinds of designs, and they're just charging a lower rate. Maybe they're kind of new to the industry. I know one year I brought in Cindy Lou, who was my last 2 year. theme wear designers, but because I introduced her to the federation, she did me a huge favor, because now she does she does all the girls. She's traveling to more shows than I travel to. So if you can find somebody that doesn't necessarily isn't aware of the federation, that's new to costume design, maybe they're coming straight out of design school, you can probably get somebody that will charge significantly less. But it's if you go to the federation's designers. Renata, she's a lovely, vibrant, big personality lady. She does most of the theme wear, and she has a
fabulous.
team. She's from the UK. Mm-hmm. She does resell some at a lower cost, which absolutely, some of these are beautiful. I mean, I've worn mine once and I'm like, what am I going to do with these? I mean, Halloween's coming around, but where else am I going to wear it? So
New Year's.
Yeah, New Year's, exactly. But that's my ball gown. So, you can get secondhand costumes for sure. So I don't want to scare people away by saying that you have to be able to spend 20 or 30 grand. But, if you're with them for long enough, it's kind of, you get pulled in a little bit, because it's just fun. So you can take it as far as you want, but you can certainly do it on a lower budget. And I think you could easily do it under $5,000 if you're doing worlds, that is. If you've got three gowns, because you're a bikini competitor and you need to have a gown that's different from the other two for the gown wear, and your bikini, and all of the federation entry fees, like it's about $550 per division that you compete in. So if you're going to compete in open 35 plus and another, you can do that. But it's a $550 fee per category. And then there's also a member's fee. And then you've got to keep in mind that you do have to use the show hair makeup artist, which is about $350 for one event. So if you're also doing theme photo shoots, you probably want to use them again. So it can add up. But
now that $550 per division, okay, per entry rather, and then also the hair and makeup, and they want you to use all of that. Why do you think so $550 for an entry? Why do you think the pricing is a little bit higher than maybe other federations just to enter the show? And why do you think they require you to use the hair, makeup, and tan that they put out, that they recommend?
Well, I think other federations have started to do more of you've got to use these types of tans, but the hair and makeup is different. But I think this is such a unique a federation. I mean, they're not like anybody else. It is a pageant. And they're also a business. These companies have to make money. So I'm the first person to say, look, I'm not going to judge, because I'm a business owner. I'm a small business owner. I own several companies. You need to be able to put on these events and make a profit. So keep with that in mind. Think about what the hiring cost is to hire in Las Vegas a big runway, a whole amphitheater that you would see at a show. Like, that's going to cost a lot of money just to find a venue. Then you've got your DJs and the light setups, and you've got to build a stage. And I don't know what their back end costs are, but I'm imagining that all of their hair and makeup artists, maybe they're getting compensated in some way as well. So I think there's an element of, this is a grand, a big old grand event. It's a lot of people's time and effort go into it, and it's something really special. So that's why I think that the fees are a little higher than maybe some of the other federations, because it's just, you feel like a princess.
Is it quality control for the hair, makeup, and tan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we went over bikini. We talked about transformation. We talked about Diva Fitness Model. And then there's two other divisions, one being relatively new to the WBFF. There's the Diva Wellness Model. Mm-hmm. And then there's also Diva Figure Model. Mm-hmm. So what can you share about what are the requirements for each of the divisions, maybe what the look of those divisions are like compared to the ones that you just talked about?
Absolutely. So I'll jump up to figure, because that makes the most sense in order in my mind. So figure is the most muscular of all of the ladies' categories. So now we're looking at women's physiques that are probably on par with the IFBB figure girls. So they're extremely lean. It is also the leanest category. And yeah, the most muscular. Now, the cool thing about the figure girls, though, in this federation is that they still have the same rules as we do. You get to create your own, posing routine. You're not kind of stuck in the figure poses that you would be doing or required to do in the IFBB. You also get to customize your outfits as well. So the figure girls only do their one bikini. They're not doing theme. I don't recall. Maybe I'm lying. I don't believe they do theme.
I believe the pros I think the pros do now with the World Championships. There's a theme.
Okay, I probably
it's kind of a moving target. I know, like, for some of the local promoters might still have for figure some of the traditional looking suits versus like the larger shows or the ones put on by Paul and Allison Dillette, who are the owners of the federation, will definitely be more in what you would expect, similar to the Diva Fitness model. So I do think you need to check with the promoter of the show to kind of cross-reference what the requirements are. But yeah, I do believe for figure, they do have in the pros only, I think they have the theme wear now. Is the theme wear, have you seen them to be very elaborate?
This is how much I don't know because I haven't competed as a figure competitor, when we're backstage, you don't get to see what's going on at the front of the stage. And I have never coached a figure competitor, so this is honestly not really my area of expertise. But based on our costumes and theme wear, I can only imagine that they are just as elaborate as they are for the fitness girls. So again, it's a little bit, if you choose to do figure, if you are a more muscular female and you're used to kind of dieting in a more aggressive form and getting extremely lean, as per, the IFBB or NPC, then that would be, a good category to put yourself in. So they are on par. The only difference really in my mind is that you just get to have that extra, expression of yourself. You can customize that posing routine. You can be, extremely muscular, but, be sexy at the same time. So that's the difference really between the fitness and the figure.
You don't really see the figure girls promoted. Do you notice that?
It probably depends who you're following. I think number one, there's a lot less of them. There's a lot more bikini girls. It's not as difficult to get to that level of muscularity for a bikini or a fitness as it is for figure. I think that's why we would tend to see, across all federations, there are fewer competitors generally in figure because it's just a lot more challenging to get there. And certainly if you're planning on being a natural competitor. So again, our federation isn't a tested federation, but there is, like, for the figure girls, like, this is performance enhancing drugs are being utilized to get to that shape. Now, there are some, I don't want to speak for all because I do know there's a couple of girls that are natural figure competitors and they give it a good shot. Now, they're not winning because they just aren't as impressive, but still extremely impressive for, natural competitors. So there's a combination of, enhanced and then natural in our federation.
I do have to say that no matter what division, the quads, whether it's bikini, fitness model, or figure, I would say from my observation, the quads, they're all beautifully shaped, solid legs. Like, we're not talking in the bikini. I mean, yes, the least amount of muscle relative to Diva Fitness Model and figure, but like, these girls had some sweeps. Like, you got some nice shape to the quads. And Diva Fitness, man, the cuts that you have and the shape in those quads, and I would have to agree, the overall size of the girls in the figure division are just way more muscular than all of the other divisions. So it is still a distinct difference between each of the categories, and finding out which one fits for you, best for you. I kind of found myself being an in-betweener too, where I had the separation, the density, and the amount of muscle and the symmetry for figure. But this was the time when Emily Sterling was competing. And if you remember Emily Sterling, she was super jacked. I mean, those legs, her calves alone were like boulders. She was incredible. So again, that impressiveness is definitely, I would say, a really distinct thing for figure. I think your spot, that was a really great way to describe that division.
Yeah.
So, and then there's wellness. What's wellness for you and what your experience so far with it?
So the former world championships, and honestly, the people that are winning the world's events are usually the athlete that you are trying to aspire to. Now, how that pans out at the local shows is always a little bit different. So it can be tough, I think, to know exactly what to strive for if you're doing a local show or you're competing as an amateur. But I think the girls that have been awarded, first place in this wellness category, in my mind, they're like the Latinas. These are the girls that have very petite, still upper bodies, but they're very lean. And they've just got these glorious glutes, these glorious thighs. Like their lower bodies are like, I will never be like that, period. Like I've had to work so hard to get my quads. And I know I could work a little bit harder and maybe grow them a little more if I wanted to. But like these are the girls that are genetically gifted race horses in the glutes down.
So, I love the word glorious. You have glorious glutes.
Yeah. It rolls off the tongue. So that is my understanding of the wellness category. I've seen a slightly softer physique awarded. I've seen a very hard physique awarded. So Urashna was, I guess, prior to her moving over to, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but prior to her moving to the IFBB to be a wellness competitor, she was the girl that everyone was kind of like looking to for guidance around that category. But I think it is evolving. I'm sure that the federation is still trying to kind of really narrow down exactly what they like. But I think, again, it is a subjective sport. So my recommendation for women is that if you know where you look best and where you feel best and where you're naturally the most confident in yourself, then that should be where you compete. And your physique might be a little bit different to, the past winners of these categories. But if you've got like this natural beauty about you and you're in wellness, you might not have the biggest, most glorious glutes and, thighs. But if your eye is drawn to that competitor because they've got this stunning outfit and they look so graceful in their movement, like that might be awarded over, the person that does have the most shredded, or sorry, I shouldn't use that word. I don't think they're looking for shredded. They don't have necessarily the leanest glutes or the biggest glutes or lower body. It's just they're looking for overall appearance and stage appeal. So I think one of the things that I have learned to accept in this federation is that I could come in and have done my absolute best, and I think that I know what the judges are looking for that category, and someone else could win. And it might be because the color of their bikini, they liked it better. And again, personal preference. So again, that's, I think, where the value comes in of kind of knowing, the coaches and the competitors that have been competing for a while and being part of that federation. Like then you get to know, the judges and the owners, and it may give you an advantage.
And let's talk about that for a second, the judging criteria. Before we move on to the men's divisions, we will talk about the men. So if you are anxiously waiting to hear about your division, we will get to that. I'd like to talk about, because the judging criteria, according to what I've seen in their website, is 40% of your score is based on marketability. 40% is based on your physique. And 20% is your stage presence, poise, and confidence. And this is across all the divisions, even the men's divisions, with the exception of the male muscle model category, which is 60% physique and 40% marketability. So basically, all of the women's divisions, the male model division, all are 40% marketability, 40% physique, 20% stage presence. So let me just reiterate, that's 60% has nothing to do with your physique. So how on earth do you even prepare? Because 60% has nothing to do with your physique. So if you're coming from another federation, whether it's a drug tested federation, OCB, WNBF, Fitness America, you're going from NPC, IFBB, INBA, all these other federations, and all of a sudden you show up to a show, with the exception of Fitness Universe, let me correct myself on that one. If you show up to a show where like 60% of your score is marketability, how do you even know what to prepare for?
Yeah, it's a bit of a transition. I remember the first time that I competed as any other federation where it is physique and maybe a bit of your appearance. I was trying to do my peak week protocols, and I'm like, how on earth am I going to do my peak week protocols and get my, pump up in the morning and then do my checks with my coach and then make sure that I eat this meal at this time, for 5 days leading up to the competition. When we've got all these like huge events where I'm actually going to be in hair and makeup at that time. And by the way, you've got a photo shoot for media day. So it is a whole different experience. And I think one of the things that I certainly focus on is I try to do the work many weeks in advance. So it's still the preparation process, the principles of nutrition, the principles of the exercise and the programming for each of the divisions is going to be fairly similar between federations. Obviously, there's some subtle differences between what fitness is in different federations, and you prepare accordingly for your body composition. And that's all about the diet and exercise. I know we haven't talked about that at all, but, as far as like, how do you peak for a show like this? It really means that you've got to set yourself up so that, you're coming into World Championships week where you're not going to be able to make any more progress. You're going to be in maintenance mode and you're just going to be holding steady for those 5 days so that you can go and enjoy. Number one, you want to enjoy, if you're going to be spending a little bit more money than other federations, let's go have some fun and actually, take part in the events and the camaraderie. So yeah, I think that's one of the key things that I found challenging as a scientist that likes to do everything like perfectly. It just meant that I couldn't leave anything to chance, and I had to get my butt into gear a little bit earlier. And the shows that I've done my worst, the shows that I've left it too late and I was still trying to peak on the week of my show like I would if I was doing any other federation. And it was just really stressful and wasn't a pleasant experience. So yeah, that's the main difference for me.
So you basically get your physique prepared based on what you see, generally what they're looking for in the categories, look at who the winners are. And then, but that's only like 40% though. Now you've got to go up on stage and make it all look amazing, make it look like you're maybe not hungry, not tired, right? And you've got these amazing lights, this huge runway. And by the way, there's no set criteria for your poses. So now you need to get up on stage and do something.
Oh, you're preparing for it. We haven't even talked about posing. That was the first year that I did this federation. My posing sucked. I was still in IFBB mode. I've got like my, the hand on the hip type thing. It just doesn't work like that. So every year I've progressively gotten better. I've hired posing coaches. My posing coach last year was Toby Harrison. He's awesome. And then the year before was Lynn Green, and she's wonderful. She's actually located very close to me in Orlando. So it was great. I'd drive up and see her, spend the day in Orlando and then drive back home. So, you need to really focus on that because that is where the bulk of your judging is being done. And if you're not confident, if you can't walk in giant heels with feathers attached to them, and you're not sassy and sexy, which to me, like, I feel like I'm up there doing an acting show. So it's a lot. Like, you're tired and hungry, like you said. You've been in hair and makeup like at 4 a.m. and then you've been socializing all day. And then, the next day you've got to get on stage and like work these giant wings if you've got wings. So you have to practice. Like, this is not something that, and I mean, any professional sport, it's part of the criteria. It's a skill. So you need to practice. And I think that was one of the elements that I totally neglected for the first couple of years. And have had to work on my sexy, which I just don't feel like that's naturally me. Like, I'm a jokester. I am a kind of a tomboy. I can dress up and look the part, okay, I think, but it's certainly a lot more work for me, maybe than the bikini girls who, like I said, described them before. I'm like, these are like naturally just like gorgeous. they're just the personable person that you would assume can just get on a runway and walk like that. They just do it so effortlessly. So maybe if you're somebody that is not, super sassy or ready to really step into your shoes and embrace being a feminine woman, then maybe the other federations are a little better. Or if that scares you, that you need to be that way, you could, number one, let it be a challenge and, use that as motivation to embrace your body and, have that body positivity that we're all striving for. Or you can just go, nope, that's not for me. I just like the hard work in the gym and, I'm good with 24 hours on the stage, or it's probably more like 10 minutes and then I'm done.
I would have to agree with you that, so this sport is a physique-based sport. Even if you're doing WBFF, you're still preparing your physique for the show. Even if it's not scored, 100% or 90%, or even just, 40%, you're still preparing your physique regardless. And if you're competing in the other federations, there still is that stage component. There still is you getting up on heels and 2 inches of fabric, celebrating being judged by a whole panel of judges and an audience, by the way. Mm-hmm. And most of the people, and, I started actually coaching the posing and stage performance requirements 10 years ago in a gym that I owned. So it was a fitness facility I owned. And the women that would come to me were actually women who had never been on stage before. They were moms. They had spent their entire life taking care of everybody else. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to do something great for themselves. The problem was they were competing in federations that weren't necessarily bodybuilding federations. So they had to do this whole performance where they're being scored individually, not in a group comparison round, but they had to be scored individually. So how do you take somebody who's probably never been on stage, maybe in the marching band when high school or 5th grade show and tell? So now your experience, I don't care who you are, your experience is like, who is up on stage walking like a runway, right? Nobody. So I understand when it comes to getting up on stage, there is a whole performance requirement that goes into preparing for shows. And if you're not natural at it, mm-hmm. there has to be that much more preparation to get you up on stage. So mm-hmm. I can understand the women and I've worked with them myself, and I've taken people who walk like a linebacker, and next thing you know, it's like, who's that? You're standing in the audience. It's like I get goosebumps watching to see, wow, because I know where they started. But anybody can learn this. And I know that this could be a big deterrent for people. And it's like, oh my God, I've got to have this, $1,000 theme wear, and I've got to look hot and sexy, and I'm just not that. But I really want to be. How do I go from that, I want to be, to completely slaying the stage? There is a process to that, and anybody can do that. So I wanted to kind of encourage people too, and not scare you away, that there are techniques, there are skills, there's a ton of development that can go into this, that you can be that if it's something that interests you, and it can be a lot of fun. Now, let's talk about the men's divisions for a second. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have male model, which you talked about. Now, let's talk about the different men's divisions and what goes into preparation for them.
Mm-hmm. So again, I guess similar to the female divisions, we've got different levels of muscularity, and then different, bathing suits, posing trunks, what have you. So I guess with the male model, these guys, they're able to come out and they're in their board shorts, I believe. They're not judged from, their thighs, their quads, or anything like that. It's basically, again, there's a big element or a component that is your physical appearance. And then, your stage appeal, how well you dress, those types of things. So the gentlemen get to come out in their board shorts, and then they get to come out in, a really nice suit. So the federation is really about glamorizing and making you marketable. So I really like and enjoy watching the men's divisions, actually, because, for traditional bodybuilding, you're just coming out in their trunks. It's all about the level of muscularity in the IFBB. This gives the guys as well, I think, an opportunity to not only showcase their physique, but, their style. Like, they, again, have complete autonomy over their suit selection. And, you see some of these guys coming out in, they've got the whole kit on, a great pair of really sharp looking sunglasses and some kind of tie, or, it's just a really cool thing to watch. Like, you don't really see male modeling like this. So we've got two different divisions where we've got lower level of muscularity, and then we've got extremely more muscularity. And then the muscular guys, they get to wear, I guess, their shorter trunks. They're more like a boy short or a boy legs. So then they are getting judged on, the muscle definition, their conditioning, how lean they are getting, their muscular size. And then there's obviously the posing element as well. And that kind of falls under that category of like your stage presence and your overall appearance. So I think that I've covered the most that as well as I can.
Well, do they have a theme wear round?
No.
So the men, so there's no theme wear, but they have a suit round?
They have a round where they come out and they wear a suit. So
and that's the same for both, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they have one round where they're in their one piece. Yeah. And then second round is in the suit. Same thing with the muscle model category, which really the only difference is with muscle model, I believe, is 60% physique and 40% marketability. So there's a little bit way more heavily on the muscularity.
On the physique. Absolutely.
Now, it's not drug. So this federation is actually not drug tested. I think people are really surprised to hear that. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
I understand, based on like the conditioning of some of the athletes like that I've competed against, like even as females, it doesn't surprise me because they are extremely lean, particularly like for the figure girls and even some of the fitness girls. Not that you can say firsthand, yes, this person's openly admit that. It's just unfortunately still something that's not spoken of. And I hope to be, I guess, the bridging gap and encourage people to be more transparent about this because, there are safety concerns, but then there's also just being your authentic self and not like trying to encourage people to do these types of competitions, but not knowing the full story. Like, this is a performance enhanced athlete, let's get some really realistic expectations here. Because if people aren't sharing that information, then we're kind of setting others up who are looking on at these competitors that, this is something that I should be able to do naturally. And it's simply untrue. And, for me, as somebody that has been a coach in the industry for, 13 or more years, I've worked with athletes that have come from, a performance enhancing background to coming off it because they don't want that anymore. I have seen the downsides, the health consequences, the psychological influence, and a negative one at that can happen with some of these. What kinds
of negative?
Like physiological, changes in their bodies. Some of these negative effects of taking performance enhancing drugs are long lasting. They can be, some of them are temporary, but they can change, your shape of your jaw for a female. That's one of the first key signs that you tend to see with women that are taking it. And again, it's just because you're able to, I guess you're a stronger person, you clench more, there's more testosterone in your system. So like their whole facial structure can change. And a lot of those changes are due to the changes in sex hormones specifically. We have an increased, hair growth for females. You'll see a lot of women with extremely hairy, bodies. There are some other, physiological changes to our anatomy that I won't get too specific about, but you can use your imagination there. And they are permanent changes that will never be, you can't go back. I guess it puts a lot of pressure on your body when you're taking performance enhancing drugs. And I just think that the risks and then also the potential downsides when you come off some of these, there's the acute effect and then there's the chronic effect. The acute effect of taking something in the way that is like enhancing your endogenous production of various hormones is that your own endogenous production of, testosterone and your other sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, they decline. And if you don't taper or titrate those correctly with like a medical person, like an actual hormone expert or endocrinologist, you risk some pretty unfavorable changes. And that is because your body cannot then catch up to producing, those same hormones as quickly as it was. There is a lag time in your natural synthesis. And that's when we see people putting on extremely large amounts of body fat in a very short time frame. Because there's just not enough time for the body to adapt back to the changes in these hormone production. So I've seen women, and I remember one poor girl, I won't mention her name personally, but she didn't tell me that she was, using performance-enhancing drugs. And we were doing a reverse diet with her. So we're intentionally adding in calories over a period of time to see what we could get out of her, endogenous metabolism, her metabolic rate. And she seemed to be doing so well. I was like, wow, we've been able to take your calories up over a relatively short time span. It was probably 10 weeks. We were able to get her calories up by 800 or something like that, which is great, me assuming she's a natural athlete. And that was with no other changes to her training. It wasn't like she was doing more exercise to kind of compensate for the increases in energy intake. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, every week, consistently, 7-8 weeks in a row, weight gain. And in that short time frame, she put on 9 kilograms. So that's 18 pounds, guys. It's a lot of weight. And finally, after, several weeks, she sent me a video message and admitted, hey, I'd been taking this. I ran out of money to afford to continue buying it. And it wasn't through her medical doctor. It was, through a friend of a friend. I don't know where she was getting it from. And she wasn't given the proper advice to stop taking it. And just obviously she didn't have any money anymore to titrate her dosages down so that her natural production could catch up. And it was just her body. It had changed so significantly, and it was really sad because she was a beautiful girl, and I mean she's still a beautiful girl at heart. But to see the emotional, the psychological damage that came from that, because she didn't know, she wasn't informed, she didn't have the education to do it the correct way.
Was she taking multiple compounds? Was she taking anabolics? Was she taking estrogen blockers? So she was, yeah?
Yeah. So she was taking anabolics. I believe she was taking growth hormones, testosterone, and she was being given clenbuterol as well. So
clenbuterol is what, for people take that for burning body fat? Isn't it supposed to be something like that?
Yeah, so it speeds up your metabolism. I'd have to go and have a look at the direct mechanism by which it works. It's been a little while since I've read about that. But I guess to summarize it very generally, it speeds up your production, it increases your heart rate, it increases vasodilation, it helps with nutrient delivery, it increases your core body temperature. You're operating at a much faster speed, which means that you expend more calories. So, when you stop taking something that's it's an exogenous product, it's an exogenous compound that is speeding up your natural metabolism. When you take that away, it has profound negative results. So
when she did her intake and she started training with you, she just lied and said she wasn't taking anything?
Yeah, I think.
And you couldn't see with especially testosterone and the anabolics and stuff like that, there were no physical changes that you saw that might have been a lot quicker than that would have been with somebody who wasn't?
Look, I've had a couple of women that I call them macronators. I have worked with a range of different girls at various points in my career, and they have been, it's going to sound crazy. So they were 63 to 65 kilograms, and they were on 500 grams of carbohydrate, 95 grams to 100 grams of fats per day. They're not having to have a crazy amount of protein because we set that based on lean body mass. So that was still normal, but that is not something that I see every day. But I have had a handful of girls who they're just blessed with a fast metabolism. Now they were doing a lot of exercise. Two of the girls that I'm thinking of, they were they weren't professional athletes, but they were athletes nonetheless. They were competing for their state in netball. Another girl was a soccer player. She was trying out to get in, the world, I guess, team. She was a Brazilian client. And, they were doing multiple, like that was their job. They were competing for many hours a day. But, if we equate the total amount of time in a gym or on the field, their energy expenditure probably isn't that much more than I would expect from, somebody that is just being very intentional with their cardio. They're going to the gym, doing the Stairmaster, or they're doing their spin class and then lifting 5 times a week. So I have seen people achieve amazing things, and it's just, you would never assume. And I think for this particular competitor that I was working with, she was still a novice, and that's what peeved me right off, because she hadn't even gotten the basics down pat yet. This is her first year competing, and whoever her coach was at the time, has put her straight into, performance enhancing drugs. I'm like, let's just learn a macro first. Let's learn about, flexible dieting. Let's learn about an evidence-based approach to your training. And let's sort out your lifestyle. Like, you're all over the place. First and foremost, we need to get those foundations right first before we go diving into, potentially something that can be really dangerous and harmful long-term.
So you don't really advocate in your business performance-enhancing drugs. You're really foundational with teaching people about nutrition, teaching people about training, combining the two, and really taking care of the health. So I give you the utmost kudos for that, because somebody who's been in the sport, I've been for 20 years. All I see at this point, the evolution, especially over the last 5 to 10 years, the escalation of just the casual roll off the tongue about performance enhancing drugs, just, you should take this or you should take this. And these are people in divisions like Bikini, ones that, you can achieve success and an amazing physique from a natural standpoint. But what do you consider natural, Holly? So a lot of people have a different interpretation of what natural is. So natural could TRT for men, could hormone replacement for women who have been through menopause, or are those considered natural to you?
Yeah, absolutely. If you are clinically, if you go and have your blood work done and your blood work comes back and shows you that you are clinically deficient or outside the normal reference range for that particular hormone, and you go and have a therapeutic dose. This isn't an exogenous dose that's going to take you to superficial levels. It's just getting you back within that normal reference range. Because there is something inherently, that's not quite balanced within your body. I don't see that as somebody that is cheating or that is taking performance enhancing drugs. And I'm going to put my hand up right now and say, I recently, and it was just in early December, for the first time in my life, I went and had my first pellet for testosterone. Now, I was very reluctant to do this firsthand because I knew that there's going to be a stigma about it, because there's not enough education out there about it yet. I've actually organized in a couple of weeks' time to head back to Clearwater and actually go and sit down and interview my endocrinologist and she's, I guess, an OBG, and talk to my audience about, let's look at the risks, let's look at the pros and cons. And let's get these people educated so they know what we're talking about, because there is a distinct difference. So TRT, hormone replacement therapy for men and women, I don't think that that's a problem. But here's what I will say. I think people can be too quick to jump to those, measures. We're going through the medical route now before they've done the work on their lifestyle. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to give up their lifestyle. So this is a quick fix. But if I have somebody come to me and they say, Holly, I am exhausted. I have been feeling like death for the last 5 years. I've been working with a coach that is an evidence-based coach. We've tried to get my calories up. We're at a good place. I feel like I've tapered down the amount of exercise that I'm doing. I'm not trying to stress my body anymore. I've made changes to my lifestyle. I've got a therapist. I'm working on my psychology. I'm reading books about my mindset. I'm doing everything within my means to correct those and to try to get these changes to take place naturally, when those things haven't worked, that's when I would say, okay, it's time. And maybe we do those concurrently for women, especially that are going through menopause. Like, we know that this is going to happen. There's a natural decline in the production of those sex hormones. So it's so important to, work collaboratively, with their endo, with their hormone therapist. And then I work on the diet and the lifestyle intervention. So yeah, I think it's sad that some people, that are in a bikini division, jump to that route. But I mean, the sport in general has become so competitive. The girls that are winning the Olympia and the Arnolds, they are staying lean year round. Like, they are competing at multiple shows, and there isn't really any way to do that naturally and be happy or have any soul, in my opinion. I mean, you've competed, like the amount of negative symptoms of dieting if you're a natural competitor. There is that's one of the reasons why I stopped competing multiple times, because I was like, well, I also have other obligations and priorities and responsibilities. I moved from one country to another. That was a big deal for me. I was like, whoa, that was stressful. Okay, it probably doesn't make sense for me to compete right now because of the routine and the rigidity that needed to come to be, to be at my best. I moved into a lifestyle where I had 2 stepchildren. I had to be, I'm now in a relationship where you're invested so wholeheartedly into making that family dynamic work. Yeah. And then now I'm managing 4 different companies and trying to be a professional, physique competitor. Like, I had to do a lot of hard reflecting on, this is my reality. Can I still be a top athlete? And that was one of the things that I had to let go of. It was like, okay, you got to let go of being so, rigid and so hard-headed on this goal. Maybe we can triage a little bit. Maybe we can, first half of the year, business, second half of the year, competing, all of the year, family. So, you have to learn how to manage and juggle that. And that is why I think some people that we see are reverting to using these, performance enhancing drugs that are artificially inflating their metabolisms so they can do it all, because I cannot, I know how hard I work as a natural competitor, and then in my business and on just wanting to be a good person in general. You cannot do it all. And my role with a lot of my clients is just helping them, having been at the top of the top for these sports in bodybuilding and seeing where the performance enhancing drug competitors are. I'm like, I have to manage their expectations of what's real and what's not. Here's your lifestyle. If you care about your husband and you want to have date nights with him, and if you want to be a good parent and show up to after school practice and also, be there and in the mornings, getting them ready and taking them to school, then you are going to have to make some sacrifices somewhere else in your life, because we've all got the same number of hours in the day, but we've all got different responsibilities. And I hate it when I hear people say, we've all got the same 24 hours in the day, just make it a priority. It's like, well, actually, no, I am a single mom. I've got 4 children, which, I didn't plan on not having a husband. And I do have to work this many hours to, make ends meet. So some people just don't have the time to commit to getting to that level. So if they had the desire and it was a top priority for them, I can see where, you'd want to dabble in that space. And I don't judge people for their decisions. I say, as long as it doesn't harm anybody else, you do what you want. But I hope that you do something that is going to be protective of you long term. Like, let's think longevity, because some of these things that people want right now are not necessarily the best for them in their future. And, I think it's really important for women especially to, if they haven't done the work on themselves. And I think, and maybe I'm overgeneralizing, but I think a lot of women get into this sport because there is this inherent feeling of inadequacy. They don't feel worthy. They don't feel beautiful. They don't feel sexy. And this is like the perfect opportunity for them to maybe work on that through their physical exterior. But you know what they haven't done? They haven't done the work on their psychology. they haven't done the therapy. They haven't tried to achieve that same feeling or sense of satisfaction in themselves by working on their mindset, by changing those dialogues, by working on that dysfunctional narrative that is so prevalent for females. So if I've got two options that are presented to me, and they both make me feel really good at the end of the day, I love myself, I love my body, I love who I am, and I can choose the route of difficult bodybuilding and changing the exterior, which may make you feel that way. And I can say, yes, it does. I feel pretty good when I'm really lean. I get a lot of attention. Everyone's like, whoa, that's really cool. But at the same time, I'm like, I can do this other work over here. I just got to read a book for that and then practice it. Like, that's a lot easier. So, I try to incorporate all of those things. I think that, there's value to having that broader picture, that broader vision of how I'm going to achieve the purpose, like the why. Why am I doing this? And let's see if we can, work around some of these more difficult, like sacrifices that we have to make in efforts to feel good.
And I think that for people that are listening that are looking for contest prep, I think the fact that you, Holly, actually approach things from a longevity, a health standpoint, you have the difficult conversations, you're open to it, to have the conversations about PED use. You also respect the fact that there is psychology to this and there is an emotional component to competing. And now let's talk about the expectations, realistic expectations of this. And touching on the things that you talked about. So I am also a lifetime natural athlete. I've actually never done anything, not even hormone replacement, nothing. Everything for my 20 years of competing, coaching, and yada, yada, yada has always been from that standpoint. And that's my journey. That's not other people's journeys. That's my journey. But I can say from what you said about when you're getting lean, I know from myself, because my division was always bodybuilding and figure. So when you get to the point where you're competing in a division where it requires a substantial amount more leanness than other divisions, that experience for the show and the show prep is going to be a far different experience than a division that isn't looking for that level of conditioning. So I can say that there's a point that would happen when my body fat would get, I can always tell when it was to the point where it's like, body's not too happy right now. So it changes something in the mind too. You're just off. You're just not quite there. There's just something different. The way you're thinking is different. You're tired. I remember being out and having a conversation with this lovely couple who I really liked. I haven't seen them in a while, and they wanted to talk. And it took everything I had just to have a conversation. So and this was like 2 weeks out from a show. So I'm really lean now. And it is taking its toll on my mind and my energy. And that's just a fact. Like, no matter what, especially as women, even men, you get your body fat down to that extreme level, your body is not going to like it. It's not going to feel good. And it's going to change the way that you are in your everyday life. Mm-hmm. So, this experience is also a hobby. So yes, you can do these things. It doesn't mean that you have to do them back to back to back. And I can understand what you're saying about seeing athletes that are competing year round and how they taking substances to help them to do that. It's probably because it's more their career at that point. Whereas probably 9% of the rest of us, it's competing itself is not our career per se. It's the hobby, it's the fun, it's part of our career in that maybe it influences other components of what we do in our everyday life, but we've got to be good in our everyday life too. Like you got to be, you're coaching how many clients? Like you?
Right now, I keep my coaching clients at 40 as a maximum, and that's over 2 days. I do 20 clients on Tuesdays and Wednesdays to enable me to do other things and have those other priorities and goals. So that's where I'm at the moment.
And that's 40 people that are relying on you, that are, paying for this too, but you're providing them the psychology, the emotional support, like you get them and what their experience is like. You have a passion and also a heart where you genuinely care and you want to see them do well. That's a lot of emotion. That's a lot of energy. How do you balance that yourself when it's like, okay, it's time for me to get ready for the World Championships? And let's be real. Diva Fitness, figure is like the ultimate in muscularity and conditioning. You Diva Fitness girls are lean.
Yeah, we
not
do.
lean. You're not showing up like, with anything sagging. There is just, you are hard as nails.
Yeah, look, I think I want to go back and talk to the audience about like the negative symptoms of the diet. And again, I think this can all tie really nicely into like setting realistic expectations based on the individual and their current circumstances. So I think a lot of the things that you don't see shared as much or as often on social media are the negative consequences of dieting. And there are a number of physiological and psychological changes that can take place that you will probably have no idea about. And I think the first one that's really obvious from a physiological standpoint is the hunger. So at a certain point, there is going to be like, you just wake up and you expect to be hungry. So for a lot of people, that is really, really challenging. Now, if we add, an individual that has suffered with, some kind of psychological disturbance in their past time, they've got some kind of trauma, they're currently dealing with something extremely stressful, and they haven't developed other good coping systems, and food is the only thing that they're currently utilizing as, a means of coping, that can become really problematic. And that's when we start to see people developing, disordered eating and full-blown true blue eating disorders. So that's a little bit of a worry for me. And, before I, start a client and a prep, there's a lot of screening involved in time that I want to spend with them first so that I can kind of say, you know what, you're a good candidate to be a competitor. You might have the freedom and the lifestyle right now to, execute the training and the diet, but let's have a look at everything else as well before we decide whether this is a good sport for you to do as a profession, or it's a side hobby, side hustle, whatever, but like you just want to give it a go. So, we've got to look at their, psychology before we do that, because when you diet, you're going to get hungry. Our leptin levels are basically which is our appetite regulating hormone. It is produced primarily in our adipose tissues. So as we get leaner, as we lose body fat, as those leptin levels come down, that's when we start to experience that hunger. And it gets worse and worse and worse the leaner you get. Now, if you're achieving like a bikini competitor, and I'm not going to talk about IFBB, you're getting on the Olympia stage, they're getting shredded. They're going to be extremely hungry at that point. But for our federation, for WBFF, those girls do not need to get as lean. So is the hunger manageable? Yeah, probably. So again, it's like federation dependent. That's why we've got to screen these people before, they decide that they're going to do a competition for like what are your normal limitations? What's the thing that holds you back the most? Like, are you a foodie? Because gosh help you. That's not going to be a good sport for you if you like going out on the weekends and, tasting 5 different share plates and eating cheese and drinking wine with your friends. That's me, by the way. It's really hard. So, hunger is the first thing. We've got decreases in leptin hormone that are going to start, that kicks off the cascade of negative symptoms. Obviously, our energy level is going to go down. So, if you are a single person without children and you're not in a relationship that, or you're not managing multiple relationships, friendships even, it might be okay because your energy levels can drop and you're not needed to be there, and no one's reliant upon you to be, taking them to school or picking them up from school or going to after school activities, or you're a surgeon, or you have a job that requires energy, personality, big, like maybe you're a TV presenter, radio host, like that's not going to work. Maybe you're just an introvert in general. Like just forget about it. You may as well just go, I'm not going to talk for the next 8 weeks. So it's, your energy levels are impacted, and that can have a negative impact on your training. Not only from a performance standpoint, once you've lost a certain amount of weight total, there's usually an inevitable amount of lean tissue that we're going to lose during that fat loss phase. So, now your strength is negatively impacted, and that can be psychologically very sad. It evokes that emotion of, oh, well, now I'm not even, I'm not performing very well anymore. And if you're an athlete of sorts, maybe you're trying to do 2 things at once, which I've certainly had clients like multitasking and doing 2 different sports. Maybe they need that energy for another sport. And I've got a little side story here. Probably back when I was living in Australia, I got invited to do a guest boxing match. So I trained up for this boxing competition, which was a charity event. And the meet day, the day that I got in the ring and fought another woman and was punching this person and expected to be like thriving athlete, I was 2 weeks out from my figure competition. And I was on like 1,200 calories that week. And I remember just being like, what am I doing? So like that was really, really hard. It all turned out. It was great. It was a lot of fun. We raised a bunch of money. But like,
I have a very important question. Did you knock her out?
No, I didn't KO. No.
Oh, come on, Holly.
I ended up like dinging it. We were both winners.
Oh, that's too funny. Can you imagine?
Oh my God.
I'm sitting here looking at you in the ring, boxing. What on earth are you doing?
Just go to YouTube and Google Holly T. Baxter boxing charity event.
Oh, that's hilarious. Weren't you afraid to show up on stage with a black eye?
I was a little. We did get to wear headgear. That's the only difference between the men's charity events and the women's. We got to put a mask on. But I still could have had a broken nose. I guess it shows you I was confident.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, my God. Can you imagine the broken nose on stage?
Oh, my God. But
so here you are, 2 weeks out from show. You're doing a boxing match. Somehow you were able to pull it off.
Yeah. So, I mean, your energy levels are crappy. And I mean, you've got to give consideration to your job, your occupation, whether you have family, children, who do you have to show up for? Because if it's just yourself, it's a lot easier than showing up for multiple other people. So again, set that realistic expectation when you are deciding if it's something that you actually want to do, or even if it's not getting on stage. And I aspire to look like this. That doesn't matter. You're doing the same thing. It's just the competitors might take it a little bit further. So we've talked about losses in strength. We've talked about losses or decreases in energy. We've talked about extreme hunger. Now let's look about some of the psychological changes. So it can impact your mood and your, temperament. There's been plenty of case studies and research studies that have looked at all of the different changes throughout a contest prep. And if we look at some of the psychological scoring systems, I can't tell you or recite the exact one off the top of my head, but they basically look at, rage, anger, sadness, depression, anxiety, meaningful, how you feel about your relationships and your connection with other people. All of those things move in a negative direction when you're competing, because your body is trying to fight the calorie restriction that you were instilling on it. It's great from an evolutionary standpoint because, back when we didn't have a plentiful supply of food and we were, we didn't have this like abundance of food available to us. If we needed it, it was our body's way of slowing us down. Our bodies adapt, we change to compensate for that reduced energy availability. But when we're trying to do that for a sport, it's really, really hard. Mm-hmm. So, you don't want to be motivated. You're not happy. You're starving. You're thinking about your next meal. So there are a lot of negative side effects or symptoms, I should say, of dieting from a psychological standpoint. I would say you're irritable, moody, depressed, low motivation. These are things that people that maybe they're doing their selfie videos on Instagram and they're taking their photo shoot pictures and putting them up. They're not telling you that I wanted to die or I wanted to be in bed just resting, or all I was thinking about was a pizza or a burger. Like, you don't see that all the time. It's not as glamorous and, fun as it's made out to be.
And I think it's important to share that with whoever you're living with. Could be partner, spouse, whatever. If you're in a relationship and you are going to be doing a show, the things that Holly's talking about, it's really important that they understand that, the hot mess express that you're going to be when you start dialing in for a show, and when you get to the point where it might not be super fun for them and you might be a little bit intolerable. So it may be important for you to remember that they love you and they're putting up with you. So don't be a jerk.
Yes, absolutely. I would say, someone asked me, I feel like I need the motivation and support from my partner. Should we do it together? And I was like, no.
Oh dear.
You got to have someone in the household that can pay the bills and that can, pick up when, one of you's feeling really down. So I'd say, as a general rule of thumb, probably not the best thing to do together with somebody. I've definitely had that conversation with my ex-husband at times, and we were like, no, I think we'll just do one of us at a time. This is good.
And I have heard coaches actually promote PEDs to their athletes because they said it's easier to compete with them. Have you heard that?
Yeah, absolutely it is. Well, it's artificially elevating your metabolism. So think about this. I can look at, and I've been in the room and competed on stage with other competitors that are on PEDs, and we're all chatting about our calorie intakes. It's like, oh, what are your macros this week? Or what were they when you've been training? And how much are you doing? So we're basically comparing like energy balance and calorie intake and food intake. People that are on PEDs are like notoriously going to have 1,000 calories more than you are. So I'm down struggling in my last 2 or 3 weeks of prep at 1,200, 1,100, with 58 kilos of lean mass, which is nothing. So, I'm right on the bottom end of my calorie floor where it becomes unsafe, where I'm risking my, my health because I'm not getting the vitamins and minerals that I need to function. They're having a party at 2,000 on their peak week. So it's a substantial difference in like plating up a meal. Like, sure, your body's lean. You feel a little fatigued. You might start to get a bit irritable, but you're also sitting down to significantly more food. So even looking at that from the perspective of preparation of your food and meals, I know for me, when I'm on 1,100 calories, I'm like having to every single meal, or like the night before bed, I'm going to have to like map out what food am I going to eat tomorrow that I know is going to satiate me so I'm not starving, that also is psychologically satisfying. It's giving me that pleasure when I eat it as well. And then I've got to fit it in with my job and the kids and like having a relationship. Like there's so much more planning that's involved for a low calorie diet than there is a high calorie diet. If I was taking steroids or some other kind of performance enhancing drug, I could probably just eat what I wanted because I don't have to plan. Like that gives you back flexibility. That's less time, that you're spending on meal prep. So that in and of itself is a huge component of where your time goes when you're a competitor.
I definitely have to agree with that. There is a certain level of pain tolerance that you have to have. So if you're waking up and you're hungry, and you have to learn to deal with that. And yes, it's easier to compete. I mean, I can't talk from personal experience, but from just the sheer fact that you can eat more, your energy levels are going to be better. Just everything, the experience is going to be better, but at what cost? Yeah. So you could either do that and make the experience easier, or you can have the experience and just know and have the expectations that it's going to get to a certain point and be a certain way and just be with that. And you have to be able to learn how to build that pain tolerance, kind of like you do in the gym. At some point, if you want to be great and you want to get stronger, it's not going to be from doing just a little bit of some repetitions here or there. You're going to actually have to put some load on that and maybe breathe through the pain a little bit. What is pain? Well, pain is how much can you tolerate? When do you have to actually stop? I mean, obviously, if it collapses on you, I mean, that's its own thing. But I'm saying, absolutely. Let's talk. I mean, the easiest one is like a leg extension. People get to a certain point. Let's just a quick little analogy. You do like a leg extension, you get to the point where it starts to suck, and most people might stop. Ouch, that hurts. Right? Versus, okay, it starts to suck. How much more can I hang? Okay, now it really sucks. Now it's like, oh my God. That's all I can say is, oh my God. And then it gets to that point, but can you sit with that, oh my God feeling? Can you breathe through the ouch to the, oh my God? So that's the pain tolerance that you can learn to achieve when you're training, but can you learn to achieve it when you're dieting? Holly, how do you help people with that?
I turn a lot of people off doing competitions, and I turn a lot of people on to working on ways to achieve their why for wanting to compete in the first place through other avenues. So again, I think it is managing expectations, and then it's a collaborative decision. I will decide with the client what makes sense, and usually there's a whole lot of time blocking. Let's look at your schedule. Okay, you've got kids. Let's put everything on the calendar. Let's work out where have we got time to train? And then where have we got time for the other things that are important to you? Maybe it is, your feelings of social connectedness are important. They are for me. I like to see my friends every week. That makes me feel good. So I'm going to plan 3 meals out over the course of the week. Where are they going to fit? Like, time blocking is critical. So that's kind of like step number 1 in even deciding whether, how much time do I have to apply myself to the training? How much time do I have to apply myself to the nutrition and everything that goes into that? And then that helps me manage the time frame that it's going to take for us to get to that goal. And that looks very different from one person to the next. So, if their aspirations are to get onto the stage, then we're looking at, okay, as a coach, I can look at somebody and kind of pretty quickly recognize, all right, we need to lose 30 pounds. Okay, we only need to lose 15 pounds. It could be 100. And then I basically do a big back calculation. I'm looking at, okay, what are the safe and effective routes for fat loss? We know that anything greater than, say, 1.5% of your body weight in a 7-day period, that is when we start to sacrifice lean tissue losses. We're no longer actually losing weight from body fat. So let's not do that. So I've got to work out for that individual, okay, what is it as a percentage of their body weight? What can we target every week? And then we've got to work out how many weeks is it going to take for them to lose that amount of weight. And then we've also got to apply the other science that we know, which is, we need to incorporate some periods at maintenance or a diet break, which is exactly as it sounds. We're taking your calories back to a place that maintains your weight for a week. And the research has very clearly demonstrated that if we compare a dietary intervention that is continuous in nature versus one that incorporates these multiple diet breaks for somewhere between 4 to 14 days, at a time, the end result is that we get greater total body weight loss and we get greater total fat loss. So as a percentage of the weight that's lost, we're retaining a much greater amount of lean tissue than we are losing it when we implement those breaks. So we've got to add time in for those too. So, that helps me set realistic expectations for somebody when they're like, I want to look like her.
What percentage of people come to you and say, I want to look hot in a bikini and I can totally do this? I've seen this thing on Instagram, all these hot girls, and I want to be popular and cool too, just like in high school.
I can't change that.
How many of them come to you and they think that the sport may be a lot more achievable than it might really be for people?
Look, a lot of people come to me with that as their aspiration, of course. One of the things that I like asking my questionnaires is like, okay, if you've got a picture of the ideal physique that you like, send it to me, because my ideal for a female's body and what we would be striving for as like your best you could be extremely different to what you envision as like your ideal body and your best you. Like, we could be miles apart. So I think sometimes having that visual, reference can be helpful. I think there's a lot of them that will come to me and that's their goal. And I would say, I think just because of the personality that I am, and I'm very open, on social media and my YouTube about, my struggles. I had an eating disorder for 15 years. And that's why I'm so passionate about looking at alternate avenues to achieving a sense of like contentment in yourself. But, I think because of that person, I seem to attract a lot of people that are very ambitious. They're very driven and they might be very busy. So again, it's just me, pushing them when they can be pushed and then managing their expectations and helping them to become more compassionate versions of themselves in weeks where they've got a lot going on. They've got 2 kids homesick from school. They're sick. They're meant to be presenting at some science conference in a week's time and they've just had a family death. I'm the person there that is trying to elevate them when they can be and pull them down and hold them back when they need to take a break and they need somebody in their lives to be that person for them. So I work with all kinds of people. It's crazy. And I don't know that I've ever had one fat loss experience or reverse dieting experience that's ever been the same. We can generalize, but that's why we have a bell curve in science. We've got a scatter plot of data that's everywhere, and people's experiences are going to be different. And so I think, there are some phenomenal scientists out there and I respect their work wholeheartedly. But I also have to come from this other side where I've got the practical experience of working with real life people, and my minimum coaching term is 24 weeks. So I get to be with these people every single week for half of a year. And then my average client lifespan is 18 months. So I am like best friends with these people by the end. I know everything about them. And it makes it so much easier when you have that connection to be able to be really transparent and, have those hard conversations. And there's going to be times where, I can say, look, you're slacking. Like, you could have done so much more this week and you chose to make this other decision, and that's okay. So I'm here to tell you, this is why we didn't get this result this week. So yeah, I get a lot of women and a lot of men as well that need that kind of hand holding. And some of the times I've given them as much knowledge as I can give them. Like, I've literally taught them everything that I know, and they're very, intelligent people. They're very successful people. But sometimes, you just end up being there as an accountability person, as somebody that is helping to identify their behaviors, helping them to be, I'm a lens that they don't see through. So I can give them some feedback, that they might not be privy to. It's like, I need a coach too sometimes. I've had a coach at times for different things in my life, because you tend to get a little biased when it comes to yourself. So, I always say every coach needs a coach, and I think everybody needs a psychologist.
That's a lot of responsibility. It really is, especially with contest prep and getting people down to levels of leanness and conditioning and just all of that. And do you feel that your experience competing with the WBFF might have helped elevate your ability to grow your business? I ask because on the website, they do talk about how they provide the most opportunities within the fitness industry and beyond. Have you found this to be your experience?
No. I would say they give you a lot of opportunities to do some things that you may have never done before. And I think that's wonderful. And we were talking earlier about, taking somebody from, they're a tomboy, they've never been on a stage, they've never been in a bikini in front of anybody, outside of their friendship circle. So I think if you are somebody that would and has the desire to build your confidence, to learn to love yourself, and to learn to apply discipline. Maybe you've been somebody that's never really been consistent with exercising before. Like, the experience of, that particular federation and competing, it can be incredible. It can grow you as a person in more ways than just growing muscle like a bodybuilding federation. So that's one of the things that I love about it. And I would encourage anybody that, wants to do it, to give it a go. But you've got to set realistic expectations, within that context.
So you haven't really found it to have elevated your ability to grow a business or expand on the business or anything like that. It's kind of been something just more for you, part of your personal journey rather than your business journey.
Here's how I would say it has helped my business. In my normal day-to-day life, I'm not a girly girl, and I'm not somebody that would just casually get photo shoots and would go and, be on a magazine cover. And I would never thought I would be on social media. So I think in many ways it's made me step outside my comfort zone, because the competition itself, that is when I kind of capture my physique and I do photo shoots. I would not do those. The years that I have taken off, so in 2020 and 2018, I did not compete. And guess what? I didn't do photo shoots in those years because I didn't personally have the motivation, because it's not my normal personality. So it has forced me to do something that I know is positive, because I would never have had the opportunity to create the business that I have now. I can use those photo shoots for marketing purposes. I can reach more people. I can help women with so many different things now because of the federation, not directly, but indirectly. And sure, I use their hair and makeup artists. I use a lot of their photographers to do some of my photo shoots. So they have put me in a position where I could access that, where maybe for some other people, they've not had any connections in those industries. So I've kind of gotten to the point now where I've realized the value of doing photo shoots, of, taking video and, being up on stage. It's helped me with my presentations when I'm talking at scientific conferences, like, okay, if I can get up on stage in a bikini, I can get up on stage and talk about science. Like, I do this every day. That's easiest for me. So yes, it helps my business. I think that it is a strategy that I will continue to do for my business. Do I need it? No, but it motivates me to get the work done that I might not otherwise do if I was left up to doing it on my own. And to the day, I've probably done 2 photo shoots outside of competitions that I've used for marketing. And it's just because I get so engrossed in writing or reading or coaching or, doing that in-person stuff that I like that too. So I'm not as focused on getting the kind of movie star lifestyle. Like, it's just, that's not what I would normally choose to do. So
what are your upcoming competition plans and goals, Holly?
I'm going to do Worlds this year. I took a very calculated risk last year of coming in softer because just of some of the commentary that was made about, seeing some of these other federations and seeing some of the negative, health consequences of women. We've had a death in other federations because of the PED use. We've seen a lot more, unfortunately, that happening in, the male bodybuilding categories. There's been a lot of really influential male pros that have passed away, and it can't be directly related to the drug use, but it's just a lot of stress on the body for that long. So I came in softer, and that was a regret because, again, as the subjective sport that it is, the eye is naturally drawn to the leaner competitor on stage. And if you've got beautiful, if you've both got great outfits and you're both gorgeous, and then it comes back to the body composition, I was softer, I lost out, did not do me any good. So I want to come back, and I think this is my year. I feel like I am in a new place spiritually. I'm in a new place personally, like with my relationship. I just feel like I have grown so much that I just have had a new lease on life. I found faith. I have never been a spiritual person. And in 2021, I think it was, I started going to church, and that has been like a big transformation for me. So there are a lot of things in the pipeline that I'm excited about from a bodybuilding standpoint, but also how I know that that's going to have a positive effect on my business and on the people that I'm working with and their quality of life, longevity, health, you name it. So
I can't wait to see what theme wear you end up with this year. That is probably the most sought after photos.
Oh my God.
What's the theme wear? I can't wait to see what that's going to be.
I think it's going to be something here's the thing. I've always loved Jasmine from Aladdin.
Oh boy.
I love those colors.
Yeah,
so that's
the turquoise.
You're the first person you're the first person I've told this. So
now everyone's going to know.
So
but they don't know the specifics. You'll pull it off.
All right. I think that's the color palette that I'm going to go with this year. So.
Well, that's going to be fantastic. So that's Worlds that you're getting ready for. You also have your all-female coaching business venture called Holly Baxter LLC.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, so that's really exciting. I stepped away from my other company, which was male and female coaches, and more just nutrition, just exercise science. And again, just seeing the deficits in the coaching, like as a coach, I knew that my role and my purpose in life is to connect the dots and, fill those big gaps that are gaping to me, so that we have a more holistic approach to people's, health and wellness. So that team I launched this year, literally 2 weeks ago. The girls started, and over the Christmas holiday period, I must have interviewed 100 coaches. We've got a new team manager, director of operations, new videographer there. She's here with me right now. We've done 2 days back to back of filming. And that group of girls, they inspire me. I remember getting off the interviews and just being like, wow, I just literally just got goosebumps. There's just so much opportunity to help other women. And that the mantra for that company is, it's a company built by women for women. So my goal is to expand beyond just, we've got a chiropractor, a physical therapist, we've got exercise scientists, dietitians, personal trainers. I'd like to move into MD and hormone replacement therapy, because a lot of the women that I'm working with are moving into that space. I'm 33, but many of my clients are in the 50s. So I want to be able to have something under the one roof that it feels easy. You're not having to ring around 15 different clinics and trying to get into somebody. So that is really cool. And then I have my coaching team that I'll be taking to Worlds. So I'm so excited about that. Like, I'm going to be competing and doing a little bit of coaching myself, but my team will handle a lot of that. But that's going to be a really fun experience. So,
Holly, that is just so exciting. You have a lot going on. Sounds like you're in a really great place. You've got the World Championships coming up. You've got it all looking forward to this year. Where can the audience who might want to follow you in your journey throughout this, where can they find you?
Absolutely.
On social media and
Instagram. I am most active on Instagram and YouTube. So my platform name is the same. It's just Holly T. Baxter. You can find my coaching team at Team Holly Baxter, and then all of the links to my products and services, right down to my nutrition coaching app, my coaching platform, which is the Workout Builder, all of my books, all of that stuff. It's all going to be on that link in Instagram. So. Yeah.
Holly, it has been an absolute pleasure. I will be watching and looking forward to seeing what you come up with for the WBFF World Championships. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today to talk about the federation. Again, I feel like a lot of people, they get into the sport, they have no idea what the various options are for them. So I started this series where I'm highlighting the different federations, and I'm bringing people on such as yourself who have a really great knowledge about the federation, so we can have conversations and give just a full perspective on the federation itself. And then you were so generous to also offer some information for the audience. We went a little bit longer today, which I'm grateful for, because I think the audience is going to love to learn a little bit more about, contest prep and expectations. So, thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge today in that arena, and also the WBFF. So once again, if you want to find Holly Baxter on Instagram, it's Holly T. Baxter on Instagram. Yep. All right. Thank you, Holly. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been awesome.
Ever wonder if you are posing correctly for your division? Learn to Pose is dedicated to taking out the guesswork on how to pose for all categories in bodybuilding. Learn 5 ways you can improve your posing skills in 5 minutes guaranteed at www.learntopose.com. There are free posing tutorials available for the bikini, figure, and men's physique categories, and more on the way for other divisions in bodybuilding. It's free, so go access your free posing tutorial for bikini, figure, or men's physique at learntopose.com.